Was taken back to the ER by ambulance. Again, alone, no loved ones. Waiting in a trauma room, and the doctor I had was a complete ass. He was very arrogant. He was very rude. He just kept insisting that I was going to die, and that was the day I was going to die. That's in his words. You're just going to die. I think I was in the ER there for 2 hours, and they found a bed in Springfield. They kept asking me where I wanted to go. And at that point, it was just like whirlwind of everything going on again. It was more MRIs with dye, and that dye, let me tell you, you feel that from head to toe. It'll make your vagina tingle. Let you know your vagina's alive. I'm just in it again, trying to process everything at that point. So, I don't even remember what time it was. I don't. That was June 5th. Taken to Springfield by ambulance. The respiratory guy rode with me, who was with me throughout my first stay at the first hospital. He was an amazing man. He was an older gentleman. He was very amazing, cracking jokes, which was great, telling me about his family. We get to Springfield Hospital, and the way I was on the gurney, all I could see was like up above me. You know, you're looking at the whatever it's above you. So I don't even know where they were taking me when I got to the hospital. And of course, you don't know what's going on. You have no loved one with you. It's just you and strangers. I remember going past all these rooms, and I was taken into an ICU room that I didn't even know it was an ICU room. They took me off that gurney and into a bed. I was immediately stripped naked by 2 guys and a female. Did not like that at all. They scrubbed you from head to toe. And at the time, I had really long hair. I had hair like down to my boobs. And I was clinging to my phone, and they wanted to take my phone from me, and I refused to let them take my phone. I clutched it to my chest. And the female nurse was very reassuring. "We'll give it back to you." I said, "Absolutely not. You're not taking my phone." So I held onto my phone. They scrubbed me head to toe. And the guy, he's washing him. I said, "Could you take me out to dinner first before you touch me in that area, please?" He chuckled. But at the time, I didn't think it's funny, and I didn't know why they were doing it. So you're laying there, and they're scrubbing you with this antibacterial stuff. And you're freezing. And of course, I had a fever, and I'm freezing then. So I'm like, help. It's cold. So they get done with that. They put the hospital gown on you, and they give you blankets to cover you up. And they're going through your intake. What's your medical history? And I'm telling them everything, medical history wise. Of course, they don't listen to me. This is why I don't go to the doctors, because nobody listens to me when I speak. So, they're like, "We're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this." I'm like, okay, it's like, I'm trying to process all this stuff, and I can't process it all. There's just too much going on for me to process. That night, I don't even think I slept. I don't even think they let me sleep. I don't remember much of that night. It was a blur. So I was in the hospital from the end of May until July 22nd. I was in ICU from like June 5th or 6th. I'd have to double check on that date. I took pictures as much as I could to document so I would remember, like, date this, and this. The first few days wasn't bad. Like, I couldn't breathe. I'm not a good sleeper. I don't sleep anyways, even when I'm home and not sick. It's just sleeping's very hard. So I wasn't getting, like, a whole lot of sleep. I would sleep when I can, like cat nap. June 8th. I don't know what went wrong. My heart rate that night went up to 208 beats a minute. Thought, this is it. I haven't seen my husband. This is it. You know, this is where you go. Whole Pasola team came in. I think everybody on the ICU floor came in. There was people I had never seen before. They put like paddles here. They had a box down there, and the way I was positioned, I could look at that box, and it was my heart rate. It was 208 beats a minute. They did some kind of medicine. It brought it down, and it went right back up. They got scared. I got scared. It got real quiet. I thought, oh, God. Like, seriously, this is it. And they're in their COVID stuff with, like, you can't see their faces, and you can't clearly understand them with all their gear on. And I had a guy, like, standing off to this side. He's like, you're going to be fine. He was Asian, very hard to understand. And he was the very sweetest doctor. Turns out he was the sweetest man I'd ever seen. I talked to him a couple months ago. And he's still a very sweet guy. He's like, everything's going to be fine. My heart rate went up again. They had to do it again. It happened like 3 times. They put the medicine, whatever this medicine was. There was so much, I don't even know, like, what all they were saying. The one doctor, he says, I think we're going to have to intubate you. And I said, absolutely not. And this is the middle of the night. I text my husband that morning, and I said, they're talking vent. But they said they're going to monitor that day and see how it goes. And I was having a really good morning. And on June 9th, that was the morning after the heart incident, they came in at like 9 a.m. And they said, we're going to have to intubate. And I was like, no. I said, you guys told me you were going to monitor, like, what was going on and give it more time. And he says, no. He says, we have to intubate. I frantically FaceTime my husband. I figure he's sleeping. I'm like, just please answer. He answers, quickly trying to tell him. I'm texting him. I texted him first, and I told him, love you. This is what's happening. Just pray, do whatever you need to do. And he FaceTimed me. We finally get him on the phone FaceTime. And we're talking, and their doctors are talking, and the nurses are talking, trying to explain, back and forth. And I'm telling them, hey, you have permission. And I'm still not understanding everything that's going to happen to me at this point. I'm still very confused. I'm alone. I'm with strangers. This is why I really drastically think you need to have a loved one there with you. And even one of the main nurses said she went to the hospital board and argued that protocol needs to be changed, that you need to be able to have a loved one with you for this reason. I was 48. And I still couldn't comprehend everything that was in process, everything that was going on in this. It was hard. It was a lot to take in. The last thing I remember, the nurse standing there with handcuffs, and she was telling me that they would cuff me to the bed once they got me out. That way you don't try to rip it out. And I was just like, okay, whatever. Still not processing it. The doctor standing on this side, he was the one that was going to intubate. And I just told him, I said, just do whatever you have to do. Just don't let me die. They told me that I would not live very long. I was born with a bad heart to start with. And they told me not to have kids because it would probably weaken my heart, which it did. And I had 3 kids, and I'm stubborn, and I didn't listen. And it did. It weakened my heart. So my fear was I was going to die. I wasn't coming out of this. The one, I don't know, like, if he was a male nurse or what he was, and it doesn't matter what, like, he was medical professional of some sort, whatever it was. And he said, I don't believe for a minute that you're going to die. He said, you're going to come out of this. You're going to be fine. You're going to live to be at ripe old age. I was in a medically induced coma, vented from 6/9 to 6/23 of this year. I don't remember a lot of things that was done to me. I had a lot of really, really bad hallucinations while under. I had hallucinated that I had gotten out of the hospital and had a vehicle and was going at high speeds, and I rolled it, but did not get injured. I hallucinated that people were trying to kill me. Like, literally had a gun on me and was trying to kill me. And that I was beating on the side of my hospital bed because I could not speak, put the tube in. And that the nurses couldn't get in there quick enough. And that I had my phone and I was trying to call 911, but I could not tell them where I was at. And I could literally see the man with the gun on me. I hallucinated that I was pregnant with triplets. I can't get pregnant anymore. I hallucinated that they had put me in a shipping crate and gauzed me in because the nurses didn't want to deal with me anymore. I could hear all these hallucinations. I could hear it. Everything full color. I hallucinated that they had people in this room that was like beigeish yellow color with the same color curtains. And it was 4 beds, 4 beds, 4 beds, and 4 beds. And they were on turntables. So, I know, crazy. It's very crazy. And you would spin like really slow. And with my asthma, I have a hard time with like perfumes, air fresheners, and stuff. They will make me really sick, can't breathe. And I'm going to come up as the most racist bitch in this. Because I had, one of the hallucinations, I had asked, why was there still racism? And it was a black girl that was in the hospital bed on the other side. And she tried to be my friend, and I welcomed her. Oh, I was like, yes, please. Come over here and talk to me. We will talk about this. And as it turned out in my hallucination, and I don't know why, but she was on drugs. And she made it out that I had told the nurse that she was a crackhead, which did not. Like I said, this is all hallucinations. So she had it out for me, and she had hired another man to kill me, which was a black male, which I don't have a problem with anybody. Race, creed, nothing, nothing at all. I have nothing against, you could be yellow, polka dotted, I don't care. I really don't. If you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. But in the hallucination, her and the girl that was in the bed on her side, when we were on the turntables, they would shut my vent off that was keeping me alive. And I could see it, like your O2 is dropping, and I would be to the point where I was struggling to breathe, and I'd be hitting the call button for the nurse, and they wouldn't come, so I was beating on the side of my bed. And then by the time the nurses would get there, they would flip it back on, and I would be, your oxygen rate would be back up to 98, 99. And nobody would believe me. That was a very bad hallucination. Very scary. Like the fear that I went through. I was in a room before that where I hallucinated. They had put me, you were in a row, just a row of hospital beds. And you were kind of like, angled. And we all had our like little mini TVs. I guess I was calling the nurse because I was like, I wanted a swab because I was so thirsty. And they wouldn't come. And when they got tired of me, they didn't want to deal with me. They put me in a shipping crate and they gauzed me in, and I was going like this, and I could feel the gauze, but I couldn't speak because of the vent. And I could hear everything going on around me. I hallucinated that I was in different places. I hallucinated that my husband had to have more heart surgery, and nobody told me if he lived or died. That was hard. That was really hard. I hallucinated that his good friend is the one that gave us COVID, and his wife was pregnant and had a miscarriage, and I could hear all of that. It turned out to not be true. I had so many hallucinations. I had hallucinated that I pulled the vent out and handed it to the nurse and said, "I'm going home. My family's here to get me. Please uncuff me from the bed." My birthday is June 14th, and I was still in the coma on my birthday. At one point, my grandpa came to take me. The room went from all color to white. And she was saying, "It's your time. It's your time to go." And I was going with her. It's so hard. So hard. And I remember everything got really bright white. I couldn't see her, but her hand, and my heart rate, I felt my heart rate go way, way up again. And it was like right here, she was tickling me, and it wouldn't stop, and it just went on and on and on and on forever. And I was going with her. And then I remember telling her, "I can't go with you. Michael needs me." I said, "I have to stay with Michael. I can't leave him." I said, "My grandkids need me. I'm the only grandma they have." And I said, "I can't leave Michael. He's the love of my life." I said, "I can't leave him." And it was a battle. It was a battle. And I'm not a believer in God. And I remember, like, a man, something with a man, and he was reassuring me, let everything be okay. And I still don't know what to make of that. I still processing, like, everything. But I came back, and the heart rate, like, it calmed. And everything immediately came back into color. And you can believe what you want if it was truly trying to cross over or not. But that's what I believe. And I found out later on, going through Facebook, my daughter was doing updates every day because my husband and her, we called twice a day while I was in the coma and get updates. And on my birthday, June 14th, was the day they said that my heart rate skyrocketed again. And it was a very bad day that they thought they were going to lose me. And I said, that's the day my grandma came to try to take me. They tried several times to bring me out of sedation. And apparently I wasn't tolerating it. I know when they did try, I think it was just, the pneumonia was so bad that my body couldn't handle it. They showed me pictures after I came home from the hospital. My husband had a picture on his phone, and I'm like, I don't remember that. Like, what's going on? It was a picture of me laying in the hospital bed in the coma with the vent in, and they had my glasses on me, my other glasses. And I was like, what is going on? And he said, they FaceTimed us off your phone so we could see you. And they put your glasses on you. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense because if I was out. And he said that I would follow their commands. And I remember nothing at all of this. There are text messages that don't even make sense that I sent my husband. I don't remember any of this. They said I had texted my daughter's friend, and I said, help. And she says, what do you need? And I said, water. So she contacted my daughter, and they called the hospital to come and, like, hey, I remember nothing of all that. But when I came out of the coma and I was finally coherent, I had bruises on the sides of my hands that they couldn't explain. And they had brought in a whiteboard, and they were holding my hand because I lost all muscle. And I remember one of the hallucinations I wrote 911, and I said kill, and they thought the doctor was trying to hurt me, and I was like no, and they thought the nurse was trying to hurt me. I said no, because that goes back to the guy with the gun. That never happened. There was no guy with a gun. So the day they got the vent out, I couldn't even hold my head up. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't move my body. And I didn't have a voice. But I FaceTimed my daughter because I knew she would answer. And I'm talking to my daughter, and my main ICU nurse is in the room. And it's not like she was over, like, I want to hear the gossip. She was just doing what she needed to do. She was, changing whatever she needed to do in the room. And she just kind of stopped and looked at me. And she just kind of chuckled. And I was like, okay, whatever. And she was sweet. She's a very sweet lady. She came back in later after I was off the phone with my daughter, and she pulled up his chair and she says, "Talk to me." She says, "Tell me what you just told your daughter." And I was, voicing what I could. And there was things that I was afraid to ask my daughter. I didn't know if my husband was dead or alive. I didn't know that if I was pregnant or not. I had a hysterectomy in 2003 or 2004. I didn't know because COVID brain and all the meds they put through you really, really messes with your head. They call it mush brain. They call it COVID mush brain is what they told me. Anywho, I'm telling the nurse, and she just, "Honey, you were in this room the whole time. From the time you got here by ambulance till right now." She goes, "I promise you were in this room." She goes, "You were safely in here." She goes, "Nobody hurt you. Nobody moved you from another room." And she goes, "We don't even have a room in this hospital that has turning beds." She says, "I guarantee you were safe." But for 3 days after coming out of the coma, they had told me, day one coming out of the coma, if anything, at this point I'm still cuffed to the bed. They told me at any given moment, they could put me back down and revent me. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I sat up like this in the bed. And I catnapped, but I didn't sleep. I was in fear of going through that again. I was just, I was like, no. And I begged to see my husband. I wanted Michael. That's the only one I wanted. And again, they still would not let me. I was in main ICU from 6/5 until almost July 1st, I think. And then they moved me to a general ICU, which was a step down. And that's when I could have visitors. My daughter came up first, and she couldn't stay but a few minutes. She came up first, and then, because at this point my husband was back on the road, and when he got in that weekend, I think he got in that Friday, I was finally able to see him. And that was just like the best thing ever, getting to see him. I didn't want him to leave. I begged him not to leave, but he came back every day until Monday. He had to roll back out. But it really boosts your morale when you have visitors, especially people you care about. But after I got out of general, when I got the vent out, I didn't know I couldn't walk. I thought, hot damn, got the vent out. I'll be home tomorrow. No, that's another story. Because we got that vent out, and I couldn't hold my head up. They had a guy come in from physical therapy, and he was sitting there, and he says, "We're going to get you on the side of the bed. We're going to get you standing." And that's when I learned I couldn't move my body. They uncuffed. I was bruised. I had bruises on top of bruises, and I looked like I had been through a domestic violence. Hello, Miss Denny. Are you trying to take over here, girlfriend? Say hello, Denny. No. Come on. They had so many failed blood draws that I looked like I had been abused. I have some nerve damage from it. But he tried to stand me up. I couldn't even hold my head up. It would be like, back down. So we had to work on that. I didn't stand probably for a week. I could not. The nurses dropped me trying to get me back in bed because we did eventually make it to the chair. I sat in the chair for about 3 hours, and then I was like, bed. I was hurting so bad. They dropped me because they didn't want to use the Hoyer lift, and I don't hold it against them. My nurses were great. They had put I had long hair, and they had put it up in buns, like space buns. And by the time I got to general ICU, they had kind of flopped, and they looked like floppy cow ears. Oh my gosh. And I had a CNA come in who was the sweetest girl. And she says, Mama, she called me Mama. It was so sweet. And she says, do you want me to brush your hair out? And I said, honey, ain't nothing going to help this hair. It's going to have to be like massively washed and conditioned. And, and she says, okay. She don't want me to try? And I said, no. And I eventually got the rubber bands out. And they used like big, thick rubber bands like you'd use on like newspapers, like big bundles. And that really should never have been used on my hair. And I don't hold it against them. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. I was in that general ICU room for 3 days. And the doctor who vented me, little old Asian man, he came in and he says, hallelujah, you're alive. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, I didn't want to tell you then. He says, you weren't supposed to live. He goes, you were not supposed to live. He says, I am shocked that you made it through this. He goes, I'm impressed. He said, I really thought we were going to lose you. Kind of took me back. At that, I was out of my room. Get out. Don't want, shouldn't tell me that. So that leads me to think that the battle with my grandma, everything going white, me crossing over, coming back. Yeah. So that's kind of scary. I got transferred. I got bounced from different rooms. I was in general ICU maybe another week. I got taken to another room on another floor of the hospital, and I call it the scary room. It was a corner room. I was off all by myself. It was a teeny tiny room. My view was old brick walls with crummy looking windows, and I don't even know what part of the hospital that was at that point. I have no clue. It had like retro outdated furniture and big light fixtures. I was in there, and I had another doctor come in, and he's like, your heart's permanently damaged, your lungs are permanently damaged. He's like, you need to get the COVID vaccine. I said, no, ain't doing it. He said, if I got pneumonia again this winter, he said, it will kill me. I have a cold now where I'm having hard time breathing, and it's scary, very scary. It sits in the back of my brain that maybe he was right, but I still won't get the vaccine. Not even what I went through, won't do it. I don't ever want to go through this again, but I won't do the vaccine. But anywho, I got moved to general floor, where that is hands off. You don't have to have the blood pressure cuff on you all the time. They just come in, take your vitals. I think it was like every 2 hours. At this point, I was still left in a bed. They were still not allowing me up because I'm a fall risk. And I just fell last Monday out here in my yard, thankfully. I've only got a bruised knee and a bruised leg. But I'm a fall risk. And at that point, I seriously couldn't even walk. I could barely lift my hands and stuff and sit up. But we did a sit-to-stand with a sit-to-stand machine, which was pretty awesome. Like, woo, carnival ride, yay. Gotta be this tall to ride it. Loved it. Legs were like jello. Relearning to use your body, so much fun. But anywho, I was in that room, until I went to the general floor. And general floor again, you don't get to go to the bathroom. You don't get out of bed. You're stuck on a bedpan. You're at their beck and call. I was in limbo for a couple weeks on what they were going to do with me, where they were going to send me for rehab. My insurance everywhere in my hometown was refusing my insurance, and I begged to come back to my hometown. That way I would be within minutes for my family, so I could see my husband and my daughters easier and more often, so it boosts your morale. Because every time my husband, I was only able to see my husband like on the weekends because he was on the road. So I would just cry when he'd leave. It's like, don't leave. But he had to leave, gotta work. We're adults. So you're alone. And when they came in and they're like, your insurance is, denied by all these places, we don't know what we're going to do with you yet. I had shut down mentally, physically, emotionally. I just sat there and I'm like, yep, stuck in a bed. Heart's damaged, lungs damaged. I'm locked away from everybody. And a few days later, they came in and they're like, you're going to third floor. You're going to do rehab here. Because they had talked about sending me to a nursing home even further away. And I was just, the thought of that, I was like, no. It's like, you send me further away from my hometown, I will never get to see my family. And they agreed that is part of your recovery, you needing to see your family. So I did recovery, rehabilitation, hospital. I went to third floor. I was scared. I was excited, terrified, overwhelmed. I had great nurses and CNAs on third floor rehabilitation. I had great OT and PT on third floor. And yes, one of my girls, my first physical therapist up there, her name was Karen. She was the sweetest lady ever. Like, come on, Denny. Get out, baby. And she gave me my first shower. Because when I was on the other floor before I went to second, and I had the really, really long hair, I had a woman come in from OT at 7 a.m. and I was so tired. She's like, do you want to get your hair washed? We're going to wash your hair today. And I'm like, how are we going to do that? I'm not allowed out of bed. They have a shower board for your hair. And she brought in this basin of hot, soapy water. And I got to stick my hands in that hot water, and that felt so good. Do you know what shower makes you feel like you're human? This woman spent 45 minutes on my hair, and she got my hair so soft and brushed through, and she braided it. So I had braids the whole time I was in the hospital. We came home and I still had braids, but with my heart being damaged, my hair was falling out like really, really bad. It was like clumps falling out, so we shaved my head. If it grows back, it grows back. I'm a natural redhead, and it's not red anymore, which I can't even cry about it. I bought 2 wigs. I have my hats. It's like, it's embarrassing because, you're on oxygen, and now you throw in having no hair. It's like you don't want anybody to see you. Because, I don't want him to sit here and be, oh my God, look at her. Grateful to be alive. Very grateful to be alive. Rehab was hard. I got up there on a Friday. And the next morning, these 3 women came in. Her name was Anna. I won't say her last name. And she says, looked at me and she says, "You're going to walk today." I said, "You're crazy." I'm not walking. I said, "I can't even move my legs." She said, "Yeah." She says, "You're going to walk." She put on those red grippy socks. You know, the joke going around TikTok, I need a 3-day vacation with the grippy socks. Yeah, she put those on me. She pulled my legs around and they pulled me up on the side of that bed and they slapped a walker in front of me and put a gate belt on. And she said, "You're walking." And they put the wheelchair out in the hallway. And they showed me how to push up with the walker. I said, "You're still crazy." And these 3 women, they stood there and they said, "You're going to walk." And I'm like, ain't happening, but let's give it a try. I didn't get up on the first try. I didn't get up on the second try, but I got up on the third. And shaky legs and all, I gripped that walker like white knuckled. And I, not gracefully, walked. I walked. I made it all the way around that bed. And I don't even know how far it was. But I made it to my doorway. And then I got in the wheelchair. And they took me to the rehab floor. But I walked. And then when you got to the rehab, they're the first thing up there. I mean, it's not hi, hello, welcome, take a look around. It was, we're going to work. And they have a car simulator. And she parked the wheelchair and put the walker in front of me and probably 5 feet. And she says, "You're going to walk to there." And I did it. And not very gracefully, I got in and out of that car simulator. And we all had happy tears. We were like, "Yeah, we did it." And then we, had to do the exercises. And then you had to walk laps. And I very shakily, in my little red grippy socks, I did it. I'm still relearning to move my body again. I'm finally able to take a stand-up shower. I still have a hard time shaving my legs. My core is still off. So, I mean, that's still hard. I get short of breath. Going to the store is harder. You have to lug the oxygen tanks, lift them into the cart. And there are days that we've had to take the wheelchair, and I push the wheelchair because I want to walk. And then there are days where we've had to, me sit in the wheelchair, and I'm pushing the shopping cart, and Mike's pushing me. But I have finally made it where I can get through the store. No wheelchair, no walker. I was home 2 weeks, and I got to frustrate that walker, and I threw the walker across the room, so I ain't using that walker no more. And I just gripped the walls as I walked. But I still have my ramp because I cannot climb in and out of the house. That's still very hard. Some days I can get in the car like a normal person, and some days I'm just so exhausted I have to, do the turnaround, sit your butt down, then drag your legs in. Bed is still hard. We're getting there. I can do all the housework. My first week home, I was in the wheelchair, sweeping the hardwood floors with a broom, rolling around in the wheelchair. I was doing dishes, hanging onto the walker. I may have had to take a break every 5 minutes, sit down, collect myself. But I'm doing it. I'm glad to be alive. And I would never, ever, ever wish this COVID on anybody. I wouldn't dare wish it on anybody I loved. I don't ever, ever want to go through being intubated again. I don't ever want to be in a coma again. I don't ever want to have those hallucinations. Before, we just moved into our place a couple weeks ago, and before we were still staying with our daughter. And one of the hallucinations I had when we were back in that spinning room, and those girls would turn my vent off, they would spray perfume over me, and I could smell it, and it would choke me up, and I couldn't breathe, and I'd go into coughing fits. My daughter was using dry shampoo, and it came in while I was sleeping, and I immediately went right back to that, and I went into panic mode, and I shot up in the bed, and my husband's looking at me like, what? And I was like looking around, and I'm like, I grabbed his hand. It's like, I'm home, I'm here, I'm safe, it's good, we're okay. It was a flashback. I have some antibacterial hand soap in our bathroom, and I have noticed that when I use it, it is a trigger. Takes me back to the hospital. I'm ready to throw it away and go buy something different, because it is a trigger to flashbacks to the hospital. There are certain smells. Sometimes the oxygen will give me a certain whiff, and it's flashbacks to there. I scroll through TikTok, and if I hear somebody like, oh, they're talking about their so-and-so, whatever, has COVID, and they're going through this and that, it's a trigger. It's a flashback, and it hurts. It kind of scares me. It will take time. I know that. So, yeah. And I live with the thought of every day of, I don't want to get pneumonia again. And when I caught this cold this time, I was like, how do we nip this in the bud really quick? Because I don't want to go through this again. You got to stop it. So, yeah, COVID is nothing to mess with. And especially if you have asthma, because it can go south really, really quickly. So that's my story, and I'm glad to be alive. I don't know. I will try to get pictures on here of all the bruises. The bruises will make you cry. I have a very hard time. My husband, he can handle a lot of things, but he could not handle seeing all the bruises. He said it made him hurt. Made you hurt. I was just to the point that I was like, please don't take blood from me anymore. I got pneumonia. I spiked a temp while I was in the hospital right before I was supposed to come home. And they had to put IVs back in, and we were doing round-the-clock antibiotics. At my last, I lost count. We were at over 22 rounds of antibiotics. I still came home, and when I had my follow-up in August, they did an updated x-rays of lungs, and they said I still had residual pneumonia in there. I see the doctor this week, so hopefully there'll be good news. We saw pulmonary in August. I see him again in January, and as of right then, he said we're still on oxygen. We did the walk test. I dropped to 88 without oxygen and with oxygen, so he says you're still doing oxygen. Since I've gotten this cold again, my oxygen, my O2 level's been dropping into the 70s. So I have to be very careful. But hopefully it'll be good news from here on out. So yeah, just take care of yourselves.